Why was Bradley Welsh gunned down in cold blood? Throughout his life, Bradley Welsh experienced a range of extremes, from acts of violence and infamy to acts of redemption and community activism. Although he was born and raised in the Muirhouse neighborhood of Edinburgh, he came of age in one of the most dangerous neighborhoods in the city. When he was a young guy, he became connected with the Capital City Service, CCS, which is a notorious hooligan organization that is associated with Hibernian Football Club. Early in his life, he was involved in a lot of trouble, including fighting and criminal conduct. He had a reputation for being a dangerous individual by the time he was a teenager, and he had served time in prison for a violent crime that involved a pistol. In the year 1990, he was found guilty of menacing an estate agent with a shotgun and received a sentence of 4 years in prison. For many people, incarceration intensifies their criminal trajectory. For Welsh, it turned out to be the impetus for a transformation. After being released from prison, he directs his efforts into boxing. Because of his dogged determination and natural ability, he was able to win the British Amateur Lightweight Championship in the year 1993. In addition to providing him with structure and a sense of purpose, boxing would eventually serve as the basis for his efforts in bringing about positive change in the lives of other people. Since its inception in 2005, the Holyrood Boxing Gym in Edinburgh has served not only as a commercial enterprise, but also as a focal point for the local community. Welsh served as a mentor to a large number of young people, particularly those who came from impoverished families. He provided these young people with an environment in which discipline, self-respect, and focus could take the place of drugs, gang activity, and violent behavior. He was a guide, a coach, and a representation of the concept of second chances. Helping Hands was a grassroots nonprofit that provided assistance to families with low incomes, arranged food collections, and distributed holiday gifts to houses that were struggling. He also initiated community outreach activities, such as Helping Hands. Despite his history of violent behavior, Welsh rose to prominence as a public person who was revered for his integrity and commitment. When he made an appearance in the television series Deadliest Men, which was created by Danny Dyer in 2008, he provided an honest depiction of the more difficult times in his life. In 2017, he appeared in a cameo in the film T2 Trainspotting, in which he played a gangster. Although it was a fictional part, it was frighteningly similar to his own background. His genuineness and charisma led to this cameo. However, by that time, he had long since turned his back on the criminal world and was instead utilizing his platform to advocate for the advancement of youth and social justice through his work. On the other hand, past events rarely forget. During the weeks that Orman had been following Welsh, he had been conducting surveillance missions and changing his appearance at tanning clinics in order to avoid being discovered. During the course of the escape, he used a Ford Kuga that he had stolen, but he eventually gave it up. Remains of firearms, DNA evidence, and security footage all pointed to him as the person responsible for the crime. Orman was allegedly paid £10,000 to carry out the assassination on behalf of an unknown figure from Scotland's criminal underworld, according to the attorneys for the prosecution. Despite the fact that the motivation is still unknown, there is conjecture that the murder was connected to long-standing criminal rivalries rather than any crime on the part of Welsh himself. In 2021, Orman was given a sentence that required him to serve a minimum of 28 years in jail out of his life term. However, the aspect of the narrative that is arguably the most unsettling is the fact that it could have been avoided. After some time had passed, it was disclosed that the Scottish police had obtained intelligence indicating that Welsh was facing a credible threat to his life. An Osmond warning, which is a formal notification that is intended to advise persons when there is a known threat to their safety, was necessary at this time because of the information that was provided. Welsh did not receive the warning at any point. It has been alleged that senior officers made the decision that the threat was not credible enough to warrant telling him. As a significant breach of duty, this judgment has been widely condemned by a large number of people. An official apology was sent by Police Scotland to the family of the deceased individual from Wales, acknowledging that officers had failed to act on intelligence that could have prevented his death. There are many who believe that this was not merely an issue of accidental oversight, there is a growing suspicion that the government may have purposefully suppressed the warning in order to avoid disturbing ongoing investigations into organized crime, or maybe in order to maintain indirect monitoring of Welsh. It is very disconcerting to consider these hypotheses, which raise the question of whether or not law enforcement placed a higher priority on obtaining intelligence than on protecting human life. It is difficult to overlook the similarities when compared to other examples. In the 1990s, for instance, London gangland figure Anthony Brindle survived an attempt on his life because the police, although having prior knowledge, did not intervene in time to prevent the attempt. Patterns such as this one point to the existence of systemic problems in the way that the police handle known threats, particularly when the individuals who are the intended targets are people who have a criminal history, even if they have changed their ways. The fact that he had spent years attempting to escape that background is what makes the Welsh case so exceptionally painful. It was in the weeks leading up to his passing that he issued a public warning about the increasing rate of gun crime in Edinburgh and discussed the perils of attempting to escape the world of criminal enterprises. A terrifying portent was supplied by his participation on the James English podcast, in which he frankly discussed how difficult it was to truly abandon your past when enemies still nursed grudges against you. He admitted that he maintained connections with those who were involved in criminal activities, not as a result of his direct participation, but rather as a result of the community that he had come from. In spite of this, it was obvious that Welsh had devoted his life to doing good. He was able to prevent others from the same path that he had once traveled and became a pivotal role in the fight against poverty and violence against young people in Edinburgh. Not only was he a man who had transformed, but he was also someone who had contributed to the transformation of the city. His assassination did more than just stifle a forceful voice. It also brought to light a more widespread institutional failure. An indictment of a system that continues to fail those who require its safety the most is the fact that a guy who was so widely known for leaving crime behind was shot and killed outside of his home, with the police having previous knowledge of the threat. In the end, Bradley Welsh was a parent, a mentor, a boxer, and a guy who had undergone a transformation. His life was taken with a horrifying precision, and his death could have been avoided. It is the lives that he altered, the young people that he rescued, and the community that he served that will carry on his legacy. However, the fact that he was murdered continues to serve as a sobering reminder of the perils of remaining silent, the burden of a history that refuses to let go, and a justice system that, far too frequently, arrives too late. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.